Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. I think it's safe to say we've both been looking forward to this one.
Yay!
Listeners, this week we are bringing you a story from issue 1 of 4-Star Spectacular, published on the 11th of December 1975. Now that might be a little skewed, you're thinking, because we've done those freedom fighters from 1976, but we're trying to follow a through line and try and do stories where they make sense to do them narratively at this point. So things might get a bit higgledy-piggledy going forward, but we're still trying to stick to publication order as much as we can. So 4-Star Spectacular number 1, Peter will tell us about the cover.
We have the three dimwits, Winky, Blinky and Noddy. It looks like they have created a machine that can make money. My goodness, it's been churned out.
What's the logo at the top of this cover?
It's All Flash, issue 22.
No, we're doing 4-Star Spectacular number 1.
I thought we were doing City of Shifting Sands.
It's good acting, isn't it, listeners? Yes, we are, Peter. But we're not doing City of Shifting Sands from All Flash 22. We're doing City of Shifting Sands from 4-Star Spectacular.
Checks notes. My goodness, so we are.
Peter, why did you think we'd be doing a story from All Flash 22, published originally on the 27th of February 1946, 2 days after George Harrison of the Beatles' third birthday?
Because in that issue, the story, The City of Shifting Sand, appears, written by John Broome with art by Martin Nadell.
Gasp. So, and how does that tie into 4-Star Spectacular issue 1, published on the 11th of December 1975?
Well, technically, this is a reprint, but also, it's not. It's the same story, but it's been redrawn.
Fantastic.
So, that's why we chose to do this, because it's quite an exciting experiment.
Yes, it's technically a new story, but technically an old story at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So, Peter, why don't you tell us about the cover to 4-Star Spectacular number 1?
At the top, DC 4-Star Spectacular, Giant, 50 cents, number 1, April, and the number is 31530.
Interesting.
4-Star Spectacular, and we have 4 heroes, all with headshots, all in stars, believe it or not. And they are Superboy, Wonder Woman, Hawkman, and the Jay Garrick Flash. And the cover's been split into 4 segments, telling you what stories are going to be covered in this 4-Star Spectacular. 4. The number 4 is very important here. First one, Superboy and the Stolen Identities. You have Superboy lying in bed. There is a book on his chest. He's asleep, so it seems. And Man-Pa Kent are looking at him, but they're not Man-Pa Kent. They're taking off rubber masks. They appear to be blue-skinned aliens with antennae. Oh my goodness. The second one is Golden Age Flash in the City of Shifting Sand. We have Jay Garrick carrying a woman in kind of like an adventurer's outfit almost. He's running through a desert and there are giant sand men, for lack of a better expression, trying to get him. My goodness. Wonder Woman meets the Talking Lion. And in this one, there's a lion escaping from a cage. And it looks like it's attacking some children. Oh no, there's a little girl who's dropped her ice cream. Oh, what a waste. But fortunately, Wonder Woman's in hand. She's diving in to save the kids. And finally, Hawkman faces the attack of the Crocodile Men.
Whoa.
Can you guess what's happening in this image?
Is Hawkman fighting some crocodile men?
My goodness, it's like you've seen the cover. Yes.
Can have. Gasp.
So, there we are.
Be careful, Hawkman. Those crocodile men could be deadly and dangerous. Right. So, listeners, as you may have guessed after that dazzling cover rundown sort of situation, we're doing the Golden Age Flash story, obviously, because here on the Earth 2 podcast, we emphasise the legacy of the Golden Age heroes through the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics. And if a Jay Garrick story appearing in a big, chunky, 50-cent giant doesn't tie into our remit, I don't know what does.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yes.
I kind of want to read all of these stories.
You can, but just not on the show.
Noticing, of course, there's an EC in the bottom right-hand corner of the Hawkman Crocodile Man picture, so that's another Ernie Chan masterpiece. Gorgeous. Right, so, if only the stories were printed in the comic in the order they appear on the cover. Now, there is a caption at the top of the first page of the Jay Garrick story, which Peter's going to read to us now, which, just further gives us the script of what's happening.
This story originally appeared in All Flash comics in 1946, but but the art of the original version was too far below modern standards to reprint the tale as it was. So we had a young artist, Edgar Bercasio, redo the art, using the original story and dialogue. That's how we brought you this old new adventure of The Golden Age Flash.
Before we get into it, it's a fascinating idea, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
I mean, quite a lot of Golden Age stuff was reprinted in the the 70s, early 70s. Obviously, we've talked at length about 100 pages and the 52-page giants. It's interesting to think, did they ever consider doing this with anything else?
Yeah.
Because, with no disrespect, some of those old JSA stories look a bit shonky.
Yes,
A lot of the art in the DC comics in the Golden Age was not that good compared to some of the other art, like somebody like Jack Burnley, for example, compared to the stuff that Quality was putting out,
exactly,
etc.
Yeah. Some of the Fawcett stuff was just so great.
It's interesting to sort of think, I suppose in a way we've kind of got close to it with that Seven Soldiers of Victory story we did last year.
Yes, very true.
Which was an old script drawn by modern hands.
But this is an actual existing pre-printed story.
Absolutely. It's almost like, I don't know, BBC Worldwide doing an animated version of a Doctor Who story that already exists.
Yes, that's a very, very good way of putting it, yes.
Which in some ways they actually have, because I think in some of the animated releases, whether there's been an extant episode, they've just animated it anyway for the sake of continuity for anyone who wants to watch the animated version, which is mind-boggling. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Doctor Who. I do enough of that on The Power of Three when Kenny lets me. So, we shall get into it. There is an opening image of a man. He looks like he's not having a good time, lying sort of stretched out on the desert surface with his explorer's hat tipped over in front of him. He's got red hair, he looks very pained. Rushing around behind him, the crimson blue blur that is the Golden Age Flash Jay Garrick. We all know him. Red tunic, blue leggings, yellow lightning flash in his chest, cool Mercury helmet, and there's weird humanoid figures looming after him, reaching for him. They've dark, dark eyes. There appears to be sort of clouds of smoke or dust trailing away from them, and a caption sets the scene.
People don't worry about sand. To the average person, it is common, ordinary stuff. And that, says Jay Garrick to the Liars Club, is just the trouble. Because to those men who have spent years fighting the desert, its vicious sandstorms and cruel mirages, sand is a deadly thing. There is even an ancient city where... But we'd better let Jay tell you the story himself, as he defends his title as champion liar by telling about... The City of Shifting Sand.
Gosh.
The night of the annual Liars Club convention, and the reporters are out in full force to cover the event.
There's a big sign that reads Metropolitan Club. You can see a lot of people standing around. So obviously there's some bustle. Jay can be seen in a sort of green sort of herring-toothed jacket, if that's the phrase I'm thinking of. He's got a nice bow tie on, he's wearing a hat. There are various pressmen and journalists standing around. There's one reporter who's got one of those hats with a card shoved into the band with the word press written on it. That always amuses me. When did they stop being used?
I know.
Any journalists that listen to the podcast can write in and let us know. I think this has been made a little bit more cosmopolitan than it probably would have been originally, because we can see a lady journalist saying, "Wonder if Jay Garrick will win the title again." And a bespectacled journalist to her side replies,
"Sure, hands down. Those flash whoppers of his are unbeatable."
I wonder if that's meant to be Lois and Clark. What do you think?
Oh, maybe. Actually,
interesting.
Yes.
The aforementioned reporter with the card on his hatband has a conspiratorial arm around Jay Garrick's shoulder as he says, "How about it, Jay? Can you give us a tip on tonight's tall tale?"
Can't tell you, boys. The other fellows are going to select my subject.
Doesn't Jay look like a dazzlingly young, handsome matinee idol in this comic?
Of course.
There's a couple of other men in the panel, aside from Jay. You've got a nice look at his bow tie here. One guy with dark hair, one guy with a cigar in his mouth. Dark-haired chap is saying,
"You asked for it, Jay."
And the guy with the cigar holds up a little patterned bowl in front of him and he says, "We want you to tell us a championship lie about this sand-filled cigarette snuffer." To which Jay says,
"Now, isn't that a coincidence?"
And running some of the sand in the little bowl through his fingers. In the next panel, we can see, oh, look, behind him, we can see a trophy with Champion Liar written on it. Running his fingers through the sand, Jay says,
"Strangely enough, a story has been running through my mind that has to do with sand. Deadly sand. Sand that hates human beings."
And we sort of go into flashback mode, I suppose, for the next little while, with Jay narrating events.
It took place a few years ago, when I was with the Metropolis Museum expedition in the Gobi Desert.
And this is beautifully rendered. Colouring in this era of DC is just spectacular. A couple of almost silhouetted forms wearing pith helmet explorer gear coming into view. There's a man and a woman. The man is saying,
Joan, I believe those rocks contain the chemical we're looking for.
I hope so. Brr. This sandy desert gives me the creeps, and the sooner we leave, the better I'll like it. Yep, it's Jay and Joan. They're probably not married yet at this point, but that doesn't matter. The next panel, we see them walking through the desert, the sun high. Nothing can be seen but sand and a couple of occasional little growths of vegetation. Jay is saying,
Sand is one of the foundations of our civilization, Joan. It's used to make glass, mortar, and cement. It's used as an abrasive for molds and founding, for pottery.
Sand facts with Jay Garrick, coming soon. Joan replies, I suppose you're right, but I feel as though our very presence were resented here, as though the desert were watching us. And then she points, saying, I was right, look there, a man made of sand, watching us. Jay exclaims,
What?
And his narration resumes,
There really was a man there, a tall man of sand staring at us. We could feel his eyes burning with hate.
As the sun beats down, we see, literally, this man of sand, this sand man with sand trailing in his wake. He seems to be walking towards them. Jay says,
I see it too. I must have a touch of the sun.
And then we're back at the Liars Club, with one guy saying, Whoa, wait a second. Let's get this straight. You saw a sand man? A living one? And Jay, holding up an uncharacteristic cigarette, replies,
Precisely. But let me get on with my story.
See some of the other journalists and hangers-on conferring amongst themselves, with one guy saying, Garrick sure can tell him.
How he makes him up's a mystery to me.
I don't know. There may be something to this. And then one guy in a blue suit says, Hey Jay, you got one guy believing you anyhow.
I always tell the truth, gentlemen. It's simply that no one believes me. Well, maybe someone will yet.
His narration resumes.
To continue, what I didn't know at that time was that a man was dying of thirst a few miles away.
Yes, it's an overhead shot of another chap, also wearing an explorer-style helmet. We can see his footprints in the sand behind him. He's walking along and he's saying to himself, No water. Can't walk much farther. Tongue is parched.
He fell forward, seeing visions, hearing voices.
Beautifully rendered here, the sun burning high in the sky. A couple of, living sandmen walking towards this poor individual. One of them says,
A human.
He is dying. Good. That will make one less of his kind. And the poor chap, his hat falling off as he tries to crawl away from them, cries, Mad! I'm going mad! The two sandmen catch up to him and start punching at him. The first one saying, Using our sand bodies, we can pound him to death.
Get revenge on all his kind.
Help! Cries the man.
I don't know where he came from, but the flash materialized right in front of Joan and went racing away.
Yes, there's a great sense of a mini tornado or twister happening as the flash appears. Joan can only look on in astonishment as the flash says,
I'm going to look into this mystery of the man of sand.
And in the first panel of page 4, he's caught up to the poor individual who's being assaulted in the Sandmen, and he yells,
Got him!
And seems to punch at one of the Sandmen. However...
But all the flash had was an armful and mouthful of sand.
Yeah, because the sand figure seems to just dissolve in front of him, with the flash saying,
That sand is gritty.
And he looks around in the next panel.
That's odd. Now we hear someone crying for help.
And the next panel, we see the flash arcing through the desert, beautifully coloured and rendered, with him saying,
Whoever called this the mysterious Gobi Desert sure was right.
Jay's narration picks up again.
To coin a phrase, the flash saw it, but didn't believe it.
Yes, he's caught up to the sound of the cries for help, and we see the poor man on the ground with now no less than 3 of the Sandmen getting stuck into him. Flash observes,
This mystery increases with every added second.
And then Jay's narration resumes.
There was a moment of whirling sand, balled into hammers that drove and hit at him like sledges.
Yeah, we see the flash being struck by hammers made out of sand. It's obviously the Sandmen have formed part of themselves into the hammers to strike the flash, who cries,
Can't stand much more of this. Better do some hammering on my own account.
We see him striking a punch at one of the Sandmen right in his middle.
Holy smoke! As soon as I hit anything, it falls apart. The sand just drops to the ground.
Yeah, the Sandman seems to dissolve. We arrive at the top of page 5, and the Sandmen can be seen running away from the Flash towards a sort of structure in the distance. Flash races after them, saying,
I'm on the track of a bigger scientific discovery than I bargained for. I've got to follow them.
Jay Garrick's narration resumes.
They came to the site of an ancient city buried beneath the desert.
Yeah, we can see stone structure. It doesn't seem too buried, to be honest. It looks like it's out in the open, but the Sandmen are making their way in through the doorway, leaving trails of sand as they go. Flash pulls himself up and says,
Uh-oh. If I went in there, I'm afraid they'd pile sand all around the entrance and suffocate me. And besides, this man requires immediate attention, much more so than those sand men.
And we see him running back to the poor unfortunate who was getting attacked by the Sandmen earlier in the story. Jay's narration.
That night, Joan and the Flash kept a long, weary vigil.
Yeah, we can see the man who the Flash has helped stretched out on a bed in a tent, Joan looking after him. The Flash is exiting the tent, saying,
He'll come around presently. I'm going out for a breath of air.
Joan is saying, he's delirious. Talks of sand hating mankind. Why, look at this ugly scar on his forehead, which we can actually see in the earlier panel. Flash standing outside, pitch black, because obviously it's night time in the desert, and he's saying to himself,
I still feel we're being watched. Well, I hope the coming day will throw some light upon this mysterious affair.
We're back in the Metropolitan Club for the next panel, as one of the reporters says, this is far and away the best fib Garrick's ever told.
A fib? I wouldn't say that exactly.
And one journalist guy who looks a little bit like a kind of craggy Pete Doherty says,
I suppose you still think this could happen?
Yes, I do, says one of the others. They're obviously debating between themselves. Maybe that's what happens at the Liars Club. I'm sure I've heard mention of the Liars Club somewhere else. Did Roy bring them back somewhere?
You lying git.
I heard that rumour.
I started it.
Jay Garrick's narration resumes at the top of page 6.
The man rescued by the Flash begged him not to leave camp next morning.
Standing outside the tents, Joe in the background, this chap, he's got red hair, we can see the scar on his forehead. He's calling after the Flash saying, Don't go! I tell you, those things are demons!
Nonsense, they're probably a form of life with a basic chemical structure different from ours. I must learn more about them.
And Flash has obviously rushed off and made his way back to the structure that he saw on the previous page. He's gone inside, he's got his hands to the ground, and he's saying,
I can move so swiftly they'll never suspect I'm in there with them.
And indeed, he has moved into the building. Further on the next panel, we can see a little row of 4 spotlights almost shining down onto the ground.
There are 4 lights for Star Trek Next Generation fans.
I see what you did there.
Yes.
Jay looks at them and says,
Those lights are queer. They burn brightly, but they're obviously not electric. Perhaps these sand things have a science of their own.
And moving further still inside, the Flash seems to come through a doorway where it looks like he's come into the Sandmen's kitchen, quite frankly. But they don't look like quite so much like Sandmen here. They look like they're properly carved out of glass or crystal or something. There's all sorts of equipment standing around, and what definitely looks like a bubbling big test tube or jar in the foreground of the panel. Sneaking in behind them all, Flash takes all this in and he thinks to himself,
Different science is right, but what are these creatures made of? It looks like glass, yet it isn't quite glass.
One of the glass men, former Sandmen, is clenching his fist and looks very happy with himself as he says to one of the others, The time is about ripe, Ben Otan.
For ages, the human race has subjected our sand subjects to all the misery and degradation it can conceive.
Yes, and those carbon beings will pay for that.
We creatures of silicon will deal with them as they well deserve. Their time grows short. Is all in readiness?
This other glass man, now standing behind this weird sort of scientific apparatus on 4 legs or 4 wheels, with a sort of gun at the front of it, replies, The dawn of new era is about to begin. This invention of yours, Ben Otan, will see to that. And Ben Otan, presumably for that is he, the other glass man, holds up a sheet of glass by the looks of things. A mirror, maybe? I don't know. He's holding up something reflecting and square and rectangular and shiny, and he says,
We'll sweep them off the earth, then people the world with Sandmen.
Gasp. Jay Garrick's narration for the first panel of page 7.
The Flash was stunned with his new knowledge.
Yeah, great shot, full-length shot of the Flash here as he thinks to himself,
Beings with silicon as a base, whereas the basic structure of humans is carbon. It'll be a war of the elements. No wonder they look so glassy. Glass is merely a mixture of silicates, and that means they derive their energy not from food, but in some totally alien manner.
There's another bit of narration captioning from Jay.
Before his eyes, the machine lanced a quivering sheet of light at the metal plates, and the metal went up in smoke.
Oh, so it was made of metal, the thing that the guy was holding up. That's fine. Yes, the gun is firing. It's striking the metal with a burst of orange flame. It starts to melt and dissolve. The Flash looking on and thinking,
Great Scott! They weren't exaggerating. That weapon could wipe out the human race.
The glass man, operating the equipment, goes on to say, The humans have nothing to match this. With a battery of these, we'll turn their cities into a mass of rubble. And if they aren't enough, a few solar energy lamps will toast those humans to a crisp. The lamps give us our energy, but they'd be deadly to man. We are the rulers of the sands. They are our subjects. But how are they treated by humans? To build for them, to scour and polish. While the Flash is listening, he doesn't see that another glass man is creeping up behind him. Jay's narration picks up again.
So engrossed was the Flash with this fantastic sand world that he did not hear anyone behind him until it was too late.
The Sandman, Glassman, whatever you want to call him, grabs Jay around the middle, saying, "Intruder, we have you now." And the Flash cries,
"Wow, this baby has a grip like a vice."
First panel of page 8 is an absolute cracker as the Flash turns into a little whirlwind, a little tornado starts spinning around to try and get away. We hear him saying,
"It's taking every ounce of speed I can summon to break loose."
One of the Glassmen says, "Beware of him. He's so fast I can't see him." Jay bursts out and punches one of the Glassmen, saying,
"Yow! His jaw may be sand, but it feels like steel."
Does seem to have hurt the Glassman because we can see him in the background clutching his face as the Flash turns to square up to another one, saying,
"Maybe I can finish his crew before it starts that engine of destruction."
Behind him, unseen by the Flash, the Glassman who he's struck is trying to crawl towards some of the equipment behind him. He says out loud, "If only I can reach that lever." Jay's narration resumes.
The Flash had heard them mention those sun lamps, but he didn't think seriously about it until a hand snapped down the lever of one of them, and a burst of brilliant heat and energy caught him in the chest.
Yes, very dynamic. We see the switch being operated, and the Flash standing as he gets struck by the brilliant golden light coming from above. Gosh! Jay's narration resumes.
He opened his eyes. A prisoner.
See that the Flash had been stretched out on a table. He seems to be tied to it, and one of the Glassmen is standing over him, saying, "Struggle all you want, man. Those glass strands will never break." My goodness, bound in glass, that's cool. Flash can only lie and listen as the Sand Glassman continues. "Your kind shall pay for the indignities you have heaped upon our race. Too long have you insulted us, forced our sand subjects to do your menial tasks." He's gone back to the big gun device that was on 4 legs that we saw earlier. "This machine will conquer the Earth for us. We are going to give it its first trial test on some humans camped near here." Flash can only think,
The museum expedition. Joan is in danger.
Jay's narration.
Although the Flash used every ounce of its energy to burst those thin strands, it was to no avail.
Flash is struggling under the glass strings and he's thinking to himself,
"Got to get free. They'll be burned alive, but I can't. Too strong for me."
We get some more narration from Jay Garrick.
Outside the ancient city, the sands gathered in a gigantic storm.
Yeah, this is really interesting because it looks as though the sand is whirling around in the wind and forming into the sand figures, or maybe the sand figures are being dissolved by the wind. But anyway, one of the Glassmen is standing and he's yelling to them all, "Gather round, ye sands of wrath. We go forth to challenge the world." We then cut back to the encampment with Joan and the chap with the red hair and the scar looking around. We can see a big whirling mass of cloud and sand coming over the horizon, and Joan says, "Oh my goodness, a sandstorm." There's a question mark coming from the mouth of the man. They start to run away, and he says, "It'll be a terrible storm. Listen to the sands howling." Joan says, "Do you think it'll be safe inside this tent?" And we see them running towards the tent, and then in the next panel, final panel of page 9, a number of the Sandmen lurching over the dunes towards the tent. The first one says,
"First, let us hurl ourselves at them.
Spend some of our fury
Before we turn the machine on them."
Top of page 10, Jay's narration returns.
Meanwhile,
We see him struggling still under the glass bindings, and he's saying,
"My belt buckle, if I can reach it, and..."
well, he narrates what he did, saying,
He gauged his mark and flipped the buckle across the room.
and the Flash says,
"Here's hoping."
as Jay's narration resumes,
The buckle flew true to its goal, and the lever snapped over.
yes, very clever, well done, the Flash. You see the buckle striking the lever, which activates the equipment, and the burst of gold energy flying down towards the Flash on his table. The Flash says,
"This is torture. Luckily the main blast is passing under the table, or it would knock me apart at the same time."
that is lucky, but even more luckily, the blast is shattering and snapping the glass strands that were holding the Flash in place. He gets up, rushing off in the next panel, saying,
That did it. Now to make tracks to Joan.
in the next panel, of course, he has been fast. We see him speeding through the desert. He's arriving back at the encampment. Lots of Sandmen standing around in various states of form. As the Flash says,
Whew, they really don't need their machine. They'll hammer everything in their path to a pulp. Unless I can stop them.
Jay's narration picks up again.
To and fro raced the Flash, creating suctions of wind as he passed. At ever swifter speed he ran, until the air howled with fury all around him. The suction he created strove against the sands, whipping them around.
You see 3 different Sandmen, all being caught up in Jay's loops and swirls. The first one says,
"It is the Swift One.
We must destroy him or he will destroy us." And then from inside the crimson blue blur, a voice says,
May the best man win."
one of the Sandmen reaches for him in the next panel saying, "I'll smash him to a pulp,"
"If you can catch me,"
says the twisting blue and red blur of the Flash. Jay's narration returns.
The sand being shivered suddenly. The powerful forces of suction created by the speeding Flash tugged at him.
Yep, you see Jay striking a punch and basically the Sandman dissolving with a...
With a violent shudder he fell apart, and the flame of life within him died. He rained sand as he dissolved.
Gosh, how literate of you, Jay. Yes, and we see the Sandman figure melting away as the Flash runs back towards the tent saying,
"Now to get Joan and that fellow out of danger."
Then we're back once again in the Metropolitan Club as one of the sceptical reporters says, "Before we hear the smashing climax, Jay, how come that Sandman collapsed like that?"
He was comprised of silicon crystals. The flame in his chest was his life force. It got energy from the sun and from those solar lamps. He was like a vortex of power revolving around the light. He could put on those glass bodies or bodies of sand, but once they were stripped from him, he died.
And everyone looks on. To my eyes, they look a little sceptical. I have to look back and see how they look in Martin Odell's rendition. Top of page 12, as some of the reporters and other members of the Liars Club look on, Jay continues.
They were highly intelligent, but there were so few of them that they never got anywhere. They lived in that one spot because there was a terrific amount of silicon deposited there. But to get back...
And we see the Flash speeding through the desert with Joan under one arm and the man that they helped in his other, with Joan saying, "Flash, this desert is dangerous. Let's get away from here."
"Not before I take care of an important matter."
And he's dumped Joan and the man in the next panel at the top of a little tune, a nice cactus looming in the front. Take a drink, listeners, anytime I mention cactuses from now on. Flash zooms off again, calling back,
"Stay there. I have to save the rest of the expedition before they fire that weapon of theirs. You're safe here, 10 miles from camp."
That was handy. Jay's narration returns.
But even as he spoke, a hand of sand reached forth.
Yes, we're back with a couple of the glass scientist guys with that device, with that gun and 4 legs, pointing it in the direction of some tents. The glass man says, "This will wipe them out." Jay's narration returns.
This sounds incredible, but before the flame had time to reach the nozzle of the gun, the Flash was on it.
Yes, the Flash yells,
"Made it just in time."
as he speeds up, grabs the nozzle of the gun with his left hand, points the gun up at the sky, so the beam fires out harmlessly. Gosh, that was close. We then cut back once again to the Metropolitan Club, as a sceptical hand points at the Flash and its bearer says, "You mean to tell me the Flash ran 10 miles before that flame got from the firing chamber to the gun's muzzle? And lighting a cigarette? Good grief." Jay Garrick replies,
"Why, yes. The Flash is fast, you know, but that isn't anything to what came later."
Excellent cigarette acting there from Mr. Watson. Jay's narration takes us back into the story.
Naturally, the Sandmen fled before the Flash.
Yes, we see a couple of them running back into their sand structure in the desert, with the Flash running after them saying,
"They're seeking the safety of their ancient city."
And Jay's narration for the first panel of page 13 reads,
"When the Flash went inside the city, he found every one of the Sandmen dead."
Yes, we see a couple of the glass Sandmen stretched out on the ground. The silhouette of Jay's boots as he stands in front of them looking down. And he says, almost sadly,
"Dead. The solar lamp broken. Of course. No wonder they died. Well, that ends their threat forever."
And we're back at the Liars Club. There's one chap who looks like a young Richard Nixon with a cigar in his hand, stretches his arms wide and says, "Come on, man. Tell us, what killed them?" Taking a draw on his cigarette, Jay replies,
"As I told you, they derived their energy from the solar lamps. It was like food to them. When Flash originally escaped from the ancient city, he left that lamp on at its highest power. The sand beings ran into a room stored with pent-up energy. This energy had sustained them as food sustains us. They couldn't help themselves. The energy just swarmed into them. Gentlemen, those sand beings died from overeating."
Next panel, it's not clear if some time has passed, but the guy who looks a bit like Nixon, stepping forward, holding the trophy that bears Champion Liar. We can see some of the other reporters in the background. One guy attaching a flash bulb to his old school camera. And the Nixon lookalike hands the trophy to Jay, shaking his hand and saying, "Okay, Jay, you win." The bespectacled reporter we saw at the start in the background says,
"There's no argument after that story."
and Jay, accepting the trophy, smiles and says,
Flash always said it was a true story.
and there is a click as we see the photographer taking a photograph. His flash bulb goes off. We're outside the next panel. A few men leaving. We can see Jay in the background. One guy in a black suit with a white shirt over a green tie. Another guy in a blue suit with a black tie. There's another man wearing a brown jacket, a brown hat pulled low over his face, wearing a spotted bow tie. The guy in the green shirt and white tie says, "I suppose you still say it was true." The guy in the blue suit says,
"You and the Flash, huh?"
and the other chap with the bow tie with the hat pulled low replies, "Yes, gentlemen, I do." And the final panel, he lifts the hat and we see a very distinct scar across his forehead as he goes on to say, "Yes, that was a true story, and I'll never forget it. Never." And we have reached
The end. Next issue on sale during the second week in February.
Well, that was cracking.
Great fun.
Enjoyed that.
Death of the Sandman. Another Sandman.
Yes, the legacy of the DC's Golden Age heroes through the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics, featuring the Golden Age Flash and some Sandmen. Do you see? Aha.
Mm-hmm.
Who's in issue 2 of 4 Star Spectacular? Superman, Kid Flash, Elongated Man, Wonder Woman. No, it's Superboy. Right, there we go, just in case you're wondering, listeners. That was fun.
Yes.
That was very straightforward and satisfying. Listeners, we're recording this the same day we recorded issues 2 and 3 of the Freedom Fighters. So that was blessed by comparison. I really enjoyed that. I have to say, I thought the art was fantastic.
Yes.
Colouring as well. That was one of the best rendered stories we've ever done. That was gorgeous. Why doesn't everything look as good and rich and textured and just brilliant as that?
Yes. No, it was very good. It's also interesting, as we mentioned, seeing Jay Smoke in this, because that is a callback to his origin as well, where
Of course.
he gets his powers when there's a lab accident because he's on a cigarette break.
That's right.
Yes, don't smoke, kids. But interestingly, there is no smoking in the original story. That's
No.
been added.
No, that's fascinating to sort of think about.
Because listeners, I've sourced some images from the original stories from All Flash 22, and this week on the socials I will be putting up some panel by panel, maybe in a page by page comparison. Obviously I can't put up the full story, just so you can compare them and see what you think.
Yes.
They'll be going up.
Yeah, we'll do the same. I'll do the same on Instagram. We might not post the same ones. So listeners, that gives you motivation to look at both the Facebook and the Instagram. We'll give you the details on them later, obviously. I'm glad they were able to rescue that man in the desert.
Yes, and he was glad to.
Yes. And that was quite clever. I liked the detail of the scar, so the reveal at the end that he was the same guy that Jay helped. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Nice to see Joan. We've not seen her on the show for quite a while.
Yeah, true. That was good. In a nice adventuring role, out adventuring with Jay in the desert.
Yep.
Very cool. I found it fascinating that this original Golden Age story obviously completely predates the creation of the Marvel character, the Sandman, because basically it's the same. Because made of sand, can change shape. Making hammers out of your arms and stuff like that is definitely a very Flint Marko move.
Yeah. And it's interesting the way that they sort of are able to take the form, sort of the glass forms as well.
Yeah.
And so you've got that mild educational aspect to it at the same time. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Of course, the Flint Marko version of the Sandman is someone that we're planning on featuring at some point in the show in the future, listeners. So stay tuned for that, if nothing else.
On an Earth 616 podcast
That's
special.
correct. It's very interesting to do the comparison between the original.
Yeah.
Because at the start there we mentioned there was a female reporter. She's not in the original. It's all just lads that are stunning around at the Metropolitan Club.
I think you're onto something by saying they look like Close and Clark, because I do think that's maybe a little nod.
Could be.
Yeah.
It's quite fun to think. As Pete says, we'll put a couple of side-by-side comparisons, but it's really, really interesting sort of looking at them. Because in some ways they're completely different, and in some ways they're almost exactly the same. I don't imagine that if I'd been telling the story using the original illustrations, I would have said things terribly differently. I mean, one thing I do sort of wonder looking back on it is the queer lights that Jay spotted at the top. I wonder if they're supposed to be the same sort of sun lamps that give them all their energy and such have you.
I would imagine so.
And I suppose it's because when Jay rushed off after getting himself free, that one lamp that he left on, presumably it was the one that drained all their...
Yeah.
I think that's what was going on there.
That overfed them.
Yeah.
Gluttony.
There are a few cosmetic details, but in some of the changes, but we'll pick out a few side by sides and stick them up on the social so you can have a look.
Yeah.
It was really nice just doing a Jay Garrick solo story.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because we don't really get to do that many solo stories for the Golden Age heroes at this point, because we decided very early on that we weren't going to do all the stories that were reprinted.
No, we'd be here forever.
Yeah.
As good as they are. Unless, of course, it was something that was relevant to what we're doing, like this one.
Yeah.
So,
there is another sort of solo Golden Age Flash story from an issue of DC Superstars that we'll be getting to before too long. So there will be some more of that. But no, it was very interesting. I love the image of them on the cover, with Jay just sort of running along with Joan and these guys all sort of looming up. And it's nice to wonder if maybe they sort of lingered in the mind of whoever created Flint Marco, but I don't know if they did.
Might have done.
Who can say? There's no way of knowing.
Silicon-based life forms is like a staple of like pulp science fiction, really. So
absolutely,
it was definitely an idea that was around at the time of the Golden Age. Interestingly, it says The Flash, Fastest Man Alive by Gardner F. Fox in the original.
Right.
But the credits on Mike say it's John Broome.
That's interesting.
I wonder if there's anything in the text piece that accompanies this.
Listeners, if you have your copy of 4-Star Spectacular #1, flick to a text page at the back. There's a nice bit of preamble about Superboy and Wonder Woman and Hawkman, but then we get a bit that says, now we get to this issue's surprise story. The Golden Age Flash tale was originally published in All Flash Comics #22, but while the story was the same, the art was not. The original art for this story was rather simple and cartoony, not at all suitable for today's comic audience. So we tried having 2 such stories redrawn by young artists of today. The City of Shifting Sand is the first to see print, and the other, Deal Me From the Bottom, will probably be featured in a Super DC Giant featuring the Flash later in the year. Now that could well be the one that I referred to earlier, so I'll have to see what pops up. And then we get a nice little potted history of the Flash, talking about how he started his career in Flash Comics alongside Hawkman, and then how his popularity led to All Flash, how he's a member of the JSA, and details then about how he came back in issue 123 of the Flash. And then they go on to sort of say, along with Superboy and Wonder Woman, asking the readers who they would like to see and who to send their thoughts to, which suggests there might even be a letters page. There's also a little blurb for Super Team Family issue 4, and for the next DC special, featuring Superman, Green Lantern, Marvel Family, and the War That Time Forgot in a great War Against the Monsters issue. Nice to see those plugs. So listeners, leaping ahead to issue 3 of 4-Star Spectacular, which is the DC Comics Salutes the Bicentennial issue of that book with our number 15 at the top. Incidentally, this reprints the cover story from, I think, Green Lantern issue 32, with Hal being drawn into his power battery and Tom trying to stop him. We did the other story from that many, many years ago.
Green Lantern's Wedding Day.
Indeed, a cracking story. An early episode. Letters page in this one. 4 thoughts. The first letter reads, Dear Editor, DC has finally done it. They've brought out a comic devoted entirely to classic reprints. I couldn't be happier. As a collector and all-round comic nut, I love reading these great classics. I really cherish your reprints because I simply can't afford to buy the original comics. I love these reprint books for precisely the same reason.
Yes.
Even more so now than I did when I was buying them in the 90s. I've been enjoying the reprints in Batman Family and Super Team Family immensely, so 4-Star Spectacular is a most pleasant surprise. Regarding the first issue, everything was great, especially the Hawkman tale. My only complaint is with the Flash story. I know, Bercasio's art was excellent, but for the sake of authenticity, I would have preferred to see the original art, even if it was below today's standards. In
Fair point.
future issues, I'd like to see more of those great Green Lantern science fiction tales. Also, some Dr. Midnight and Atom stories would be fine. And please bring back those classic Adam Strange epics. And that's from Gerald Duet, New Orleans, LA. I think that the Adam reprints and Strange Adventures had stopped by this point, actually. I think they must have done. Anyway, there's an editorial response, and it reads like this.
You've got GL in this issue, and Adam Strange will be starred in every other issue of DC Superstars. And to see what kind of art the Golden Age Flash had before we gave him a new look, see the Flash chapter of the Justice Society adventure reprinted in Super Team 4. Artist Martin Nadell had a style adapted for humour, not super action.
Of course, the DC Superstars of Space. That's right, they did. Alternate, I've got all of those. Yeah, that's fair on Martin. Again, we'll refer everyone to look over Peter's right-hand shoulder and see my drawing of Green Lantern dedicated by Marty. Lovely. Thanks to my pal Gareth for getting that for me. The next letter we're going to read goes like this.
Dear Editor, OK, forethought, here comes mine. First off, I hate reprint magazines, and I've been collecting comics since 1958, and most times I have to wade through 3 or 4 stories I already have to get one minor reprint. It just isn't worth 50 cents. Having said that, let me reverse myself and say 4-Star Spectacular #1 was worth every cent. Not only did I get 3 out of 4 stories that were new to me, but the redrawn Flash would have been worth the money alone. I know this is probably a foolish hope, but I'd like to see that sort of thing done frequently in your magazine. Many of the old Golden Age stories were severely hindered by poor or at least unsophisticated art. If only more could be retold with such beautiful artwork. Here's also hoping for more of Bercasio's art showing up in other magazines. Now, my suggestions for future 4 stars. Number 1, The Vigilante. He's always been a favourite of mine. Did Ranger Gord write this? Next, Robot Man, one of the best backup features DC ever had. Finally, Black Canary, or the Green Arrow. Not only am I interested in their old stories, but it would be good exposure for a possible revival of either or both in their own comics. Congratulations on changing at least one reader's opinion of reprint magazines, and that's from David J. Brown, Hammond, Indianapolis.
I think Indiana.
Indiana.
Yeah. Vigilante would pop up, of course, in this book. I think Green Arrow does as well, actually. Editorial response, Green Arrow will be co-starring with Green Lantern in a mag out next month. I have to pay attention to those because a couple of them we're going to do for reasons that some folk can probably work out. And there's a GA Black Canary mag in the works too.
Ooh. Is there?
Well, that didn't happen.
No, that's interesting.
We have one other redrawn Golden Age flash tale which will be published in the July DC Superstars out soon, and we mentioned that earlier. ENB. Good, we're in the safe hands of E. Nelson Bridwell. Wonderful. The final letter. Dear Nelson, thank you for having a Golden Age flash story, The City of Shifting Sand, redrawn for the pleasure of the readers. It was a delight seeing an excellent rendering of the original Scarlet Speedster and such concern for the high standards of art consistently maintained. I cast my vote for seeing reprints of Golden Age adventures of members of the Justice Society. I've been a Justice League fan since the beginning, but not able to afford the high prices demanded for Golden Age stories. And that very reasonable request is from Fred Schneider, New York, New York.
Well, he would like sand because that's where you find your rock lobsters. Fred Schneider, B-52, Fred Schneider. Assuming it is.
It has to be.
Who knows?
Is there a way of getting in touch? Is he on the socials?
I don't know.
Let's try and find out.
Listeners, if you know Fred Schneider, please email us and let us know.
Yes, we'll tell you how to do that in a moment. Editorial response to Fred's letter goes like this.
Well, we have another Golden Age Wonder Woman on tap for next issue. The sources of this issue's tales are
right, we don't really need that.
No.
Okay, not much of a response at all. But
No.
Can you imagine if they just went around redrawing Golden Age stories left, right and centre for a couple of months? That'd have been amazing.
What story would you like to see redrawn? And who by?
Well, the guy that drew the Flash story was amazing. Maybe someone could redraw that Our Man story that Steve and I did for JS April.
Oh, yeah.
See if it made any more sense.
I'm thinking of all time, not necessarily Golden Age comics. Just
I don't know what a story redrawn. I'd like to see Guy Davis drawing Green Lantern 76.
Interesting. Yeah, cool.
Equally, I would love to see Neil Adams to have drawn any storyline from Sandman Mystery Theatre.
Yep, I can see that.
Two of my favourite artists, two completely different stylists, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
If I was to get one Golden Age story, the JSA Solomon Grundy story, I'd love to see that drawn, open inverted commas, better, close inverted commas. I mean that loosely, folks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What about you?
I'd quite like to see Arkham Asylum done by Frank Whiteley.
I'd quite like to see Arkham Asylum drawn by Neil Adams and Guy Davis on alternating chapters.
Because Grant and Frank, really work well together, and I think he could pick up and do things. I like Arkham Asylum. I think it's really interesting, but
some of it's impenetrable, let's be honest.
The art, I think, overpowers the actual story.
Sure.
And I think some cleaner cut storytelling would benefit it. I know it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable and take you out of it, but I think it would be just interesting to see a cover version of it, so to speak. So, yeah.
Listeners, that was the Jay Garrick story from issue 1 of 4-Star Spectacular. 4-Star Spectacular would run up until issue 6, and Black Hawk would turn up, and Green Arrow and Vigilante would turn up, Hawkman would turn up again, quite a few Wonder Woman stories. And it's not the only 4-star DC title. Back in 1972 to 1973, we got 5 issues of 4-star Battle Tales.
Ooh.
Which reprinting some really, really good war stories, some stuff with Johnny Cloud. There's one issue 3, which reuses the cover of an issue of Star Spangled War Comics, one of the World at Time Forgot stories, but reprints a different story inside, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
So because we don't have too much else in the way of bonus content this week, so I might post the other covers of 4-Star Spectacular and the covers of 4-Star Battle Tales, just to kind of pad things out, because not everyone might have seen them, but you never know. Some folk might. That's what we thought of the story in 4-Star Spectacular number 1.
But what did you think? You can email us at theearth2podcast@gmail.com and let us know. Also follow us on the socials because, as I said, we'll be putting up some lovely comparison pages for you to check out and see exactly how this story was transformed. On Facebook, Instagram and Blue Sky, we're at the Earth2 Podcast, and on Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2, and it's the number 2 for all of our socials.
If you enjoy what we're doing and are feeling generous, please consider going to wherever it is you receive your podcast and leaving us a positive review. If you do, we'll maybe even read it out. That would be nice. Or if you're feeling even more generous, you can find your way to our link tree, to our coffee page, to buy Peter the Price of a Beverage, where he edits and polishes every episode into the flawless jewel that it is. What's next? I can't remember. I'll have to have a look at the list.
On that note, I've been Peter.
And I've been David. Take care, folks. We will see you again very soon on
The Earth 2 podcast.
Transmatter cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.